I love kettlebells for a few reasons. In many cases, they are the perfect middle ground between cardio and strength training. What's more is that the unusual angles they put you in and the different torque and forces that they apply are ideal for strengthening parts of your body that otherwise go overlooked. I'm not a kettlebell guy by any means. I'm a jack of all trades. I love training with a variety of tools and combining them to get the best effects. Kettlebells aren't perfect for every goal, but my hope is that these videos can lower the barrier to entry. The following movements are awesome and you should check them out. The kettlebell loaded carry. All you're doing here is carrying 1 or 2 kettlebells by your sides and going for a walk. I like to use a finger grip, which gets the forearms pumped, and you should also maintain a slight shrug in the traps. Not exaggerated, but just don't let your arms hang like dead weights by your side. Try and keep your torso straight and avoid rocking from side to side as you walk. This movement can be done for distance or for time, or you can increase the weight to progress. This builds a massive strength endurance and mental toughness, while also training the forearms, traps, core and hips. Hip stability in particular benefits a lot from this movement and can help to prevent slips and falls, while also making you harder to push over. Some argue that loaded carries are in fact the most functional movement. After all, they improve your gait cycle, while also challenging you with a movement that you genuinely have to perform in the real world. That of course being to carry something heavy from point A to point B. I do this all the time with my kids, and pretty much everyone does it with their shopping bags. Do this and you'll have grip, stability and determination to be genuinely useful in a wide range of tasks. And for added benefit, doing a one-sided carry, called a suitcase carry or a briefcase carry, will add to that anti-lateral flexion because you have to stay upright against the uneven weight, and this strengthens the QL, the glutes and the obliques to provide further stability. If you don't have space to take your kettlebells for a walk or don't want to go outside, you can walk around your house and get the same benefits. Or even stand on the spot and raise your legs to do slow marching A's, or 100 ups. Try and keep your torso and the kettlebells as still as you possibly can while switching legs. This is a great drill for strengthening the hips and balance. So the Unilateral clean and press is one of my favourite kettlebell moves, and it's one I've been using since I started working out in my bedroom as a kid. The move looks simple, but there's a lot to it. It's simultaneously a hinge, a little bit of a squat, and a shoulder press. It's explosive, yet it requires stability, particularly lateral stability, as you're balancing the weight on just one side of your body. What I really love about it though, is the way that it forces you to move the upper and lower body in unison. It bridges that gap so that you're able to drive power from the legs and then push through overhead. So many exercises are upper or lower body, but that's not how most functional movement works in the real world. It's one of the closest single moves that also provides a whole body workout, and it's brilliant as a conditioning tool that gets you exhausted fast. To do this, I'm performing the movement from the ground rather than from a swing. That makes it a dead clean. Then I'm hinging down and reaching to grab the kettlebell by the handle. I stand up powerfully and I drive the weight up into the clean position by thrusting from the hips and driving through the legs. The acceleration should carry the kettlebell into position rather than feeling as though you need to curl it up there. This isn't a bicep exercise. Doing this from the ground as a dead clean lets us develop maximum explosive power from that standing position. Now you're going to simply press the kettlebell overhead.
So the way that a lot of people recommend holding the kettlebell is using the hook grip. So that means that you're going to put the L of your hand between the thumb and the index finger, the webbed bit. You're going to tuck that into the corner of the handle so that it's essentially hooking around the kettlebell. And then if you do this right, when you're in the racked position, it's going to rest really nicely on the groove between your forearm and your upper arm when your arm is bent on the nice squishy part. If you're going from swings into a clean, then what you would do, ideally, is to swing with a kind of finger grip, with the kettlebell resting more on the fingers, and then as you transition during the pull, you're going to insert your hand into the kettlebell and let it slide so that you're in that hooked position. Again, you don't have to do this, you can just grip onto the kettlebell. It's what's comfortable for you. As long as your wrist is straight and your arm is straight and you're not bending anything backwards under load, that's what's really important. Try and keep the arm relatively close to the body as you pull upwards and close to your center line. It doesn't have to be right down the middle of your body, but it shouldn't be hanging out to the side of your body either. Like everything though, it just takes practice. I recommend checking out Labour Stark's video on YouTube. He has some great tutorials on this move. I particularly like to perform this movement by placing the weight further to one side, so it's in front of the opposite leg, and then reaching down with the opposite arm. This is a rotational kettlebell clean and press, or a cross-body kettlebell clean and press, and this increases the amount of rotation. You can also do it with 2 kettlebells, which of course lets you increase the weight.
The Turkish Getup is one of the most popular kettlebell movements there is, among certain crowds at least. It began as a feat of strength for old-time strongmen, and it feels very unique in today's fitness landscape. Essentially, the movement challenges you to stand up under resistance. This not only teaches you how to get up off the floor, which is very useful for those that struggle with that, but it's potentially very useful for martial artists, particularly grapplers, who want to stand up when someone is trying to keep them down. What I really like about it is that you're keeping the weight in place and then moving your body around underneath it. This is an entirely different expression of strength, and it requires the main property we're going to be training here: stability, particularly in the shoulders, which is perhaps the number one benefit of this movement, and also in the core though, to a large extent. Don't attempt to emulate my technique, instead watch someone like Mark Wildman or Squat University for that. I understand the mechanics, but I don't practice it a lot, so it doesn't come naturally to me. Recently, Dr. Mike said that he thought the movement was overrated, and it's certainly not something you'd program for hypertrophy or for max strength. There are too many moving parts here. But what it is doing is treating strength as a skill, developing good movement patterns, good intermuscular coordination, and the weight forces you to do that in a smart way. This is a very useful movement, but it's not for everyone or for every program. I really enjoyed playing with it again today. To perform the Getup, grab the weight in both hands using that hook grip again, and then roll onto your back with it, if you want to do it the safest way anyways. Now raise the knee on the same side as the kettlebell and extend the other arm out flat to the side. Now you're going to press the kettlebell straight up in the air. Lock the arm out so that there's no give at the elbow. Knuckles pointing at the sky and eyes fixed on the kettlebell. You want to keep looking at the kettlebell the whole time. Next, twist the shoulder up towards the sky and extend the arm further. You're rotating the upper body and pushing it off of your supporting arm onto the elbow. You're not just pressing the weight. Here is the rotation. Then raise your hips up. This is a bit like a glute bridge, but not quite, as you're more side on, so it's kind of somewhere between a glute bridge and a side plank. You're going to perform a reverse kick through with the extended leg so that you're on one knee. Now straighten out your body, move under the weight so that you have it extended directly above you. This movement is called a windmill, and it's what makes the Turkish Getup so good for shoulder health, moving it through a large range of motion while maintaining stability like this. Now you're going to come up on your toes on the grounded leg and stand straight back up. To get down, you simply do the same thing in reverse, but remember to first rotate that back foot out of the way after you come down on one knee, otherwise you'll find it places weird forces on your knees and it's hard to get into position during that kick through part. There's a lot to learn here, but it's great for seeing yourself improve over time. That brings us to something a bit simpler though. The kettlebell jump squat is, as the name suggests, a squat with a jump. Simple, yes, but it also is extremely effective at improving jump height and running speed, as demonstrated by numerous studies. There's a couple of things that I really like about this. Firstly, the weight is perfect for increasing power. Too much weight and the movement becomes slow and grinding. You won't want to jump up in the air holding 100 kilograms. That doesn't train the nervous system for explosiveness. The ideal weight depends on the movement, but it's generally thought to be up to 30% of your body weight. It's also great because you need to keep your body upright despite that front-loaded resistance. This means you're extending the knees and driving through the torso at the same time as extending the ankles. And this is what we need to generate maximum leaping and sprinting power. As you land, make sure to absorb that impact with your feet and knees. So touch with the toes first and then soften that landing. For maximum explosiveness, try to spring straight back up to capitalize on the stretch shortening cycle. But for maximum power generation, you can pause at the bottom of the squat and then drive up from there. What I love to do is to follow a few kettlebell jump squats immediately with regular jump squats. I benefit from that post-activation potentiation, and it's a killer drop set. And now might be a good time for me to tell you about today's sponsor, Vivo Barefoot. One of the things I love about training outdoors with kettlebells like this is the uneven terrain. This makes training more difficult, especially for moves like the upcoming RDL. But that's also truer to life. While it's great training with perfect form at the gym, if you want to prepare for the real world, then you need to get out on rough terrain and stabilize yourself there. A loaded carry over tricky terrain is going to light up your glutes and hips in an entirely new way. Vivo Barefoot make minimal shoes with a thin sole, no raised heel, and a wide toe box that allows the toes to splay out. This lets me feel the floor under my feet and thus better adjust my position to stay balanced. It gives me more connection to the floor, flexing my toes for more support, and doing this even helps to enhance glute engagement. Last time I spoke about the way that having no heel actually makes it a far more comprehensive mobility challenge because your calves aren't stuck in a shortened position. And Vivo Barefoot make what are, in my opinion, the very best barefoot shoes. They're extremely comfortable, very durable and long-lasting, and they look awesome. Viewers can use code TheBioneer15 to get 15% off their first pair of Vivos. And if you buy a pair today, you'll also get access to their new Human Potential online course, completely for free, for a limited time only. This is an incredible resource with experts talking on a variety of topics that are very relevant to viewers of this channel, and it's free. Thanks again to Vivo Barefoot, and now on with the show. Another great option for shoulder health is the Kettlebell Pullover, and this will give you more overhead range of motion and work the lats in a completely different way. Lie on the ground again. You can do this with your legs straight, but I recommend having them bent with the feet on the floor. Now take one kettlebell and press it from the ground. With it right above you, you're going to let the arms fall backwards over your head, keeping them straight. If the arms do bend a little, it's not the end of the world, but this isn't the aim of the exercise. Now you're just going to pull the weight back to the starting position, keeping the arms straight and really focusing on engaging the lats as you do. This is a pull over, not a tricep extension. There are a few ways to grip the kettlebell, and the way you hold it will impact on the range of motion you achieve before the weight touches the ground. This is a weighted stretch for the lats, which is what makes it so good, helping you to get your hands overhead for other movements like the Turkish Getup or like the handstand. For added points, try and keep your core nicely engaged and keep your pelvis posteriorly rotated. That means trying to touch your lower back against the ground and keep it there, whilst contracting the glutes. And what does this matter? Well, when you do perform movements like the handstand, the aim is to keep the core engaged and the glutes tight. You don't want rounding in your lower back there. And you'll find that your shoulder mobility becomes more limited as you do this. So if you want useful overhead mobility, doing both these things at once is a great goal. The single leg RDL, Romanian deadlift. To do this, you're going to stand on one leg and place the kettlebell down in front of you on the ground. Now hinge at the hips. It's okay if the supporting leg bends a little, but this isn't the objective of the move. This is a single leg deadlift. The spare leg should stay in line with the body, near enough, and so will extend out behind you like a counterweight. Grab the kettlebell off the floor once your body is near enough parallel, and then stand back up. You can do this contralaterally or ipsilaterally. For the non-nerds out there, this means you can use the same arm as the one on the ground, which is ipsilateral, or the opposite arm to the one on the ground, which is contralateral. Try not to reach out too far in front of you, keep that kettlebell relatively close to your body, but actually you can play around with this to alter the challenge. When you perform reps, you don't need to place the weight back on the ground. That's what makes it an RDL. You can, however, as this makes it more of a balance challenge. Is this more of a straight-legged deadlift in that case? Not really, because we're not strictly telling the leg to stay straight. It's kind of like an anterior reach with a kettlebell, but also not really. It's called a single leg RDL. Relax about it. This movement teaches you to keep your hips level as you hinge down and requires a great deal of stabilization. Seeing as we most often sprint and jump off of one leg at a time, this is extremely valuable. You also want to focus on that back leg. Look at the foot. Does it point at the ground or is it tilting off to the side? It should be the former. This will help you to keep better alignment in the pelvis, and it could be a useful diagnostics tool for spotting issues with internal or external rotation. I have issues with this, and this has been useful for me checking my progress over time. It fixes a lot of problems, in other words, and I actually made a whole video on this, which also proved pretty popular. So I'll leave a link in the description down below, you can check it out. And that's still not all of them, guys. We've yet to discuss some of the absolute classic kettlebell moves like the snatch, the windmill, the jerk, gorilla walks, push press. So if you want to see those, let me know in the comments and I'll be back for more. And if you want a plan that incorporates kettlebell training alongside calisthenics, cardio, mobility training, traditional weights, and more, all to create a highly adaptable program that builds performance in every domain, then check out my ebook and training program, Super Functional Training 2.0. That comes with 2 hours of instructional video and an 80+ page ebook. Link in the description down below, and if you use code kettlebells, you'll get 20% off for a limited time only. Either way, thank you so much for watching, guys, and bye for now.